I'm going to show you how to make a Copilot Studio agent that creates an Excel file and outputs it to the chat window. That's right, there's no crazy code here. I'm just using a prompt to generate the Excel file and a brand new feature called Code Interpreter. Now, I'll admit, it took a little while to crack this, but now that I have, it feels like magic and I can't wait to share this agent with you. So let's take a look at what my agent does and then I'll show you how to create it step by step. So this agent that I've got here is called the Expense Report Creator agent. And what it does is it takes in a set of receipts as input and outputs a travel expense report. The receipts look like this. So it's just a big PDF with a bunch of receipts inside of it. And then we use Copilot Studio to scrape off all of the dates, the totals, the name of the place where the expense happened. And then also augment that with expense code and accounting code data. Then we come back over here to Copilot Studio and we can see, oh look, there's a little button here called Open Excel File. Let's go ahead and click on that. And look at this. We can see all of the expenses for my receipts are in this Excel file. That's great. So if you really like this, well, you're gonna love this video. So let's go ahead and create the agent together. All right, so I've created a brand new Copilot Studio agent. And all I've done so far is given it a title and a very short description. The next thing we need to do is create a topic. So I'll create a new topic from blank, and I'm going to call it Create a Travel Expense Report. And what this topic is going to do is accept a set of receipts from the user in the chat window, and then use them to generate the Excel file and output that back to the user so they can download it. Let's use this description for our trigger. This topic creates a travel expense report Excel file from a set of uploaded receipts. So when the user says something like, help me create a travel expense report, this topic will know to trigger. The next thing we'll do is add a question node. And we'll add the question node to say to the user, please upload your receipts. Then I will create an expense report for you. And so when this question appears in the chat window, it's going to wait for the user to respond. And we want to wait until the user inputs a file, right? Because we're working with a PDF with lots of receipts in it. So I'm going to choose to identify file here, and then the question is going to wait till a file appears. I like to rename all of my variables that come out by default. So I want to rename var1 to something a little bit more descriptive. We'll call it VAR receipts file, and I think that'll make it a lot easier for us to identify what's going on with that variable. And then one more message I want to add here before we start working on the Excel file creation is I want to say thanks. I'm creating your expense report now. Please wait a moment. And so if you think about what's going to be going on inside of the chat window, it's going to take a little while for this Excel report to be generated. So it's important that the user always knows what's going on. Otherwise, they're just going to think that the agent is thinking and thinking and thinking, or it's broken or something. They need to know to wait. So make sure to put that message in there. Now, to create this expense report file, to create this Excel file, we're going to need to do it inside of an agent flow. So let's create a brand new agent flow. We go to add a tool and then new agent flow, and we should be able to start editing it right here. And look at this. This is pretty brand new at the moment. New inline editor for agent flows. I really love this. Okay, so here's our trigger, and it says when an agent calls the flow. And what I want to put here is a file type input because we're passing a file from Copilot Studio into the agent flow. We're going to use that as our input. Next, we're going to create a brand new prompt. So I'll type in run a prompt and we'll look for that action. There we go. And we're going to create a brand new custom prompt. Okay, now what should we call this prompt? Let's call this prompt extract travel receipts data. Now we're not going to both extract the travel receipts data and output the Excel file in one prompt, because what I've found is Code Interpreter is not very good at extracting the receipts data. GPT does a lot better job. So in this first prompt, we're going to extract the receipts data into a JSON format, and then in a second prompt, we're going to use that JSON to create the Excel file. Now I've gone ahead and created the instructions that we're going to use here. And they look like this. Before we read them together, let's just add two input variables here. The first input variable that we're going to have is called travel receipts, and it's a document type. So this is where we're going to be inputting our PDF. So I'll call it travel receipts. And here I want to upload a file somewhere here on my desktop, messy desktop. Travel receipts merged. That's great. Okay, click close here. And then we also have our accounting expense codes. So I'll call this accounting expense codes. Now for the purposes of the example, what I've done here is I've created a set of accounting expense codes. You can see them where it says 5001 meals and entertainment expenses, and has a little bit of a description. Oh look, I can kind of blow that up just like that. And I've done it as a text variable. But what you might want to do for yourself is you might want to store this in a Word document or a PDF and use a document type input, and that way these expense codes can change as accounting changes them. So we'll click close right here. Let's take a moment to quickly read through this prompt. So here we've got our task, extract details from travel receipts and complete the expense report. Then in the next section we've got output format, and we wanted to output this as a JSON. So let's go and change our output format to JSON over here. And in this part of the instructions, we're listing every field, every property that should be in the JSON, and a little bit about what each one of those fields means. And then finally in the instructions, I've said I want to get a count of the entire receipts and return that back. If something fails, just keep on going, don't worry about it, and do the next receipt. For the expense codes, take a look at the description in the expense codes and try and match them up with, the vendor name on the receipt or the things on the receipt. Like if you see some food, that's obviously a meals expense, so code it that way. And just make sure you do things consistently. So let's go and click test right here. It'll take a moment to output our JSON, but when we do, we can bring that back into our agent flow and then start to create our Excel file. Now that our agent has output its response, you can see that we've got 10 receipts in that file. And yeah, we've got date, vendor name, expense code, account name, total amount, just like we asked it for right here. So this is looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and click the save button. And then this prompt should be added to our agent flow. Okay, so we've got our travel receipts and accounting expense codes that we need to input right here. So let's go and do that. For travel receipts, we are going to pick from this menu, and we're going to pick content bytes. And then for the accounting expense codes, remember we just used like a whole bunch of text, right? So I'm just going to copy and paste that text into accounting expense codes. And if you want to do it differently for yourself, you can go ahead and do that. That's great. We've got our first prompt here. Let's give it a quick rename. Let's call this extract travel receipts data. And then let's go ahead and create our second prompt. So we'll look for the run a prompt action. And we are going to name this one create travel expense report. Now we'll open the drop down right here and click new custom prompt, and it's going to bring up the prompt designer. We're going to call this prompt write receipts data to an Excel file, and then I'll paste in my prompt right here. We'll read it together, but before we do that, I'm going to create my variable before I forget. And this variable is going to be a text variable named receipts data, and it's going to include all of this text that you see right here. This is a JSON from the previous prompt action. So I'll copy and paste it in and hit close. Now let's take a moment to read the instructions together. So the instructions say create an Excel file including all values found in the receipts JSON. Then we'll use the receipts data as an input. And then I have a few additional notes right here. The first note says what the order of columns should be, because I found that this prompt will output the columns in just a random order that I don't want unless I say do it this way, left to right. Then I said auto-fit all cells inside the spreadsheet, because if the prompt just writes values to the spreadsheet, they're too long to fit inside the cell, they're going to get cut off. So to make it easier for readers to see what that is in that cell, I said auto-fit cells in the spreadsheet. And then the final instruction says use the modern pandas style, no writer.save. And this is because I got an error when I tried to generate my Excel file. It said OpenPyXL does not recognize the save method. And so by putting this little additional note in there, I was able to generate the correct code to create the Excel file. So to turn Copilot or to turn Code Interpreter on to create that Excel file, you go to Settings and you hit Enable Code Interpreter. And when this is enabled and you hit the Run button on your prompt, it's going to create some Python code, and that Python code is going to do the work for you, creating that Excel file. Now, if you can't enable that button, you're going to have to go into your Power Platform Admin Center to do it. Let's take a look at how to do that together. Let's go to admin.powerplatform.com, click on the Copilot button, click on Settings, scroll down to Code Generation Execution. Then you look for your environment and you check this little box right here and click Save. Pretty easy to do. If you don't have access, just ask an administrator for help and it'll allow you to use Code Interpreter in your prompts. So we've got that enabled. We're going to hit the X button and then we'll hit Test. And in just a moment, we should see the Excel file over here on the right-hand side. Great, that was actually pretty fast. So let's click on Documents and Images. And when we do, we can hit the Download button. Got our Excel file right there, and look at this beauty. Wow, we've got all of our receipts in the Excel file. We've got the correct expense codes beside them. Prompt figured that out. We've even got a comment here that says, hey, we don't have all the data that we're supposed to. Dates not found on the receipt. And that's pretty awesome, right? Because we didn't have to write any code to do that. The prompt did it for us, and we got our Excel file. I absolutely love that. So all there is to do now is to hit the Save button and then get back into our prompt, or get back into our agent flow. Back in our agent flow, we're going to fill in the receipts data input property. And here we're going to put text from the previous prompt. We'll hit the Publish button. And this is a pretty good time to just go and test what we've done so far and make sure that the Excel file is getting output properly. So hit that test button, do a manual test, import your receipts, and then hit run the flow. Okay, test is done. So let's hit the done button and see what happened. You can scroll down here. Looks like both prompts ran successfully. And if I hit the output button, here we can start to see that, yeah, we got some files output as part of this here prompt. So what we're looking for is inside the files property, and what we're going to need in just a moment is the base 64 content right here. So let's remember this: response v2, prediction output, files, base 64 content. Okay, let's get back to our agent flow. So now that we have the Excel file, what do we need to do next? Well, we need to send a link to that Excel file back to our agent so the user can open it. And remember, this file isn't saved anywhere yet. So we also need to put it in some place like OneDrive or SharePoint, because the user can't view a file that's just been created in memory. So let's go and create another action here. We're going to do a OneDrive create a file action. Pick this one right here. Let's choose a folder path, and we're going to choose a folder path that's already going to be in place for everybody, so we don't have to go and create these folders. I'm going to choose Microsoft Teams chat files because that's where I'll eventually deploy my agent to, but you could choose Copilot chat files as well. We'll pick a file name, and I've got some code ready to go for this. So what this code says is take these three things and join them together to make a file name. We've got receipts underscore, and then we've got The date stamp and the timestamp formatted as year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds. And then we've got .xls at the end. And the reason we made that date stamp is so that every time we have a unique file and there's not going to be any naming conflicts for anybody. So we'll click the add button right there. And then our next job is to go ahead and get that file content passed in so we can create the file. So remember, we just took a look at our flows test run. And what did we want to get? So we have this right here. We have finish reason text, and we don't have exactly what we want. So good thing I've gone ahead and wrote that down. So let's go to our formulas, and we'll stop here for just a moment to take a look and just see what this code says. So what we're doing here is we're getting the body of that create travel expense report prompt, which has the Excel file. Then we're looking in the response v2 property and prediction output, and eventually getting to files. We want to grab the first and the only file in there, so you can see first, and then we want to get its base 64 content. And I know this is a lot, but after that we want to use the base 64 to binary function in order to convert it from base 64 to binary so we can go and create the file. So if you need to, just take a moment to pause this step right here and write this code for yourself, because you can't go and select it from the dynamic content. At least I couldn't right now. Okay, we'll hit that add button. Now that we've created the file, the thing that is unfortunate is we don't actually get the full path to the file back when we create that file. We just get the folder, we put it in the file name, and we need the full path to OneDrive. So we're going to take a few extra steps right here. First thing we're going to do is send an HTTP request. Send an HTTP request. And this is using the Office 365 users group of actions. And we're going to use this URI in order to get all of my drives, right? All of the drives that I have access to. We'll use the get method because we're getting data, and we'll just use the default content type right here. And I know we're going pretty fast, but there's a lot to cover. The next thing that we want to do is filter array. And the values that come back from my list of drives are going to be in a table, right? In an array, and we just want to get the OneDrive one. So what we'll do is, what do we want to get here? We want to get do we want to get the body? No, we want to get the values inside the body. So I will change this to say body HTTP request, and we'll say value. We've got to kind of edit it for ourselves. We'll click add, get rid of that, write some more code right here, because there's a name property inside of that array. So we'll do item name, and we want to set it equal to OneDrive. And the way I figured all this out is I repeatedly saved and tested the flow to see what's inside those JSONs. And you can do that for yourself, but we just want to keep on moving along right here. Then we're going to create the full file path in order to send it back to Copilot Studio. So we're going to do a compose action right here. The first little bit of information that we get back and put into this field is going to be the URL of the user's OneDrive. So we write this code. We get the body of the filter array action. We get the first one, and we're looking for the web URL, because that filter action is going to take all the drives that I have, and it's going to return only one of them, and we just want to get the web URL of it. Okay. Then one more thing here. We want to get the folder and the file name and the extension from the create file action. And we'll just take a moment to see if I can find it here. Oh, look, there's actually one I can click on. That's nice and convenient. Great. And then we're going to call this compose XL file path. Okay, we're almost done here. This is great. Click on respond to agent, we're going to add one output variable, which is called the file path. And then we're going to take the output from the previous action. And that's going to be the URL the users can click on inside of our Copilot agent to see the Excel file. Okay, so we've created our entire agent flow right now. It looks like I have a little bit of an issue. It says contains an invalid reference. Why was that? Okay, yeah, it's because I didn't name my filter property properly. So let's just name that filter array name equals OneDrive. Sometimes these little errors pop up and just got to go ahead and fix them. Okay, hit the publish button. Let's go ahead and test this one more time before we go back into Copilot Studio. We'll pick our file and we'll see if we can get that file path. Okay, run flow. Let's see what happens. Okay, the flow's done. It's time for the moment of truth. Let's see if that path brings us to our Excel file. So I'll open up my compose action, copy and paste into the browser window. Looks like it downloaded our Excel file, and would you look at that? There it is. It's a thing of beauty. Awesome. So now that we have the link to the Excel file, we just need to go to Copilot Studio and send that message back to the user with the link. So let's go do that. We should probably give this here agent flow a name. So we'll call it create an Excel file. Pretty creative, right? Hit the save button, and then we'll pop on over into our agent expense report creator, going back to the topics, going back to create a travel expense report. And here we are once again. Let's add our flow. Create an Excel file. There you go. And we need to pass in the file content. So to do that, we need to back up for a moment and go to our question node, hit properties, go to entity recognition, and we need to say include file metadata. It's very important, or else we won't be able to get our file content that we need to pass into the flow. Okay, so now we have that there. Let's go and fill in this variable, and because I clicked on get the file metadata, you don't just see the receipts file here. You see content, content type, and name, and that's perfect because that's exactly what we're going to need. Now we need to create a record here in a specific format. And the first property is going to be called content bytes. And here we want to look inside the topic. We want to get the receipts file, and we want to use its content. And then in the second property, which is just going to be the name property, we write name, topic, receipts file, and name. And now it's going to be in the proper format to be accepted by the flow. We'll change this output variable to make it aligned with our other variable names, var file path. Okay. And then all we have to do is write a message back to the user. Okay. So what should that message be? I think I'll write this one. Your travel expense report has been created. Please download it using the link below. And we have to create a couple of line breaks here. So we're going to write some HTML to perform the line break. So we'll say BR, and then we need to create a link also using HTML. So we'll say a href, and then inside of there we're going to use the file path. We'll come back to that in a moment. We'll close the tag, say open Excel file, and then we'll close the a tag. And here inside of the href we can say insert variable, and then put var file path. And the last thing we want to do is go to topic management, say Oh, where is it? End conversation so the agent doesn't send an extra message. Okay, we'll hit the save button, and now let's go and see this in action. Okay, so we've got the test window here. We're going to type in create a travel expense report, please. And then it's going to ask us for that file, so we'll go and drop it into the chat. We'll hit the send button, and then we get this first time permission request for OneDrive and Office 365. So we'll hit allow. We'll let this happen, and now it'll start to process the file. So this takes about, I don't know, 20-30 seconds to do, and then it just spits out the Excel file. Great. So now we've got the final message from the agent. We can click on Open Excel File, take a look at it inside of our browser, and there we go. There it is. We did it. That's it. That's the video.